Qinghua Li. For your convenience, you can call me Li. Today I'm going to share with you, of course, I learned from Mr. Bob Proctor about do you know who you are? Before I started, I share my moment with you. Remember I told you guys when I'm on my main learning, I'm sharing my moment. Because yesterday was my least productive day. Basically, I just learned this one thing. Because I make promise, I learn from Miss Bob Proctor, and I'm going to share with you, right? So I'm prepare for you guys. But this whole thing take me the whole day because I was typing. I show you normally what I do because when I learn, I basically, of course, I have those video like that, right? And then I copy the things. Let me see. I should have some here. Let me just open here. You see, normally I take pictures, so I use those. I just, read. But then yesterday I feel like, maybe I'm just typing them so I can show you guys when I'm just reading so you don't confuse, right? But I didn't realize it taken me a whole day. The thing I share with you because by the night time, normally about 9:30ish or 10, I go to bed. But then I didn't finish up. So my inside me start arguing with me, said, just go to sleep. And the other one said, no, you should finish. It's not that much anymore because basically you promised you're going to share tomorrow. You should share, today you didn't finish, but now you need to share tomorrow. So being me fighting with me. Anyway, so what I'm trying to tell you, whatever you do, sometime yourself inside that unseen enemy fight with you. So you need to be strong. Whatever you promised, if it's a good, the direction you need to finish. Anyway, so let's me start reading for you guys. Okay, basically this is a TV interview. I believe the guy's name Tom because that's why they use a T as Tom, and Miss Bob Proctor just use a P. And he started asking, I said, you attended seminars. Your reason there was learning more about yourself. My experience has been people attend seminars, especially self-development seminars, to looking for the answer. They want to know what is after there I can learn so that I can be more successful, right? That wasn't your motivation? And Mr. Proctor said, I think probably you're right. That's what most people are looking for. I think they are looking for an answer outside of themselves, and they are never going to find it. I think by this time I realized it was something in me. I met a man here in Toronto. He was the one that originally got me involved in studying this. Ray Stanford. He told me if I didn't like the result I was getting in my life, that I was going to have to change me because they were my result. And he said that if you are going to change you, you're going to have to find out something about yourself. And that seemed to make sense. I don't think it was a earth-shattering idea. It wouldn't give anybody a brain hernia. But it made it a hell of a lot of sense to me. So I started to study myself. I found most people don't know who they are. They really don't. And Tom asked, what do you mean? I know my name, my age, I know where I live. And Miss Proctor said, that's not you though. If you ask the average person who they are, they will give you their name. They say, I'm Bob Proctor, but I'm not. Bob and Proctor are two words. My parents gave them to me. They are called names, but it's not me. It's my name. Then somebody will say, well, this is me. Of course, he pointed his body. He said, this is not me either. It's my body. Like you never phoned down here to the studio, said, body won't be in today. It's sick. We don't say M hand, M leg. We say my hand, my leg, my body, my name. Who am I? That's an interesting question. And I believe if a person will start to study and then looking for the answer, they will find it. I think we live simultaneously on three planes of understanding. We are spiritual creatures. We have an intellect, and we live in a physical body. But because we lack awareness of understanding of who we are totally locked into the physical world. And then we let things outside us controlling us. 95% of the population are reacting to life. They're not really live at all. I think there's two barriers. And he said success is a funny word. Nightingale had a great definition for it. He said a person is successful if they know where they are and they know where they're going, and they are progressively moving in that direction. He said that success was a progressive realization of a worthy idea. Anyone that has a goal and they are moving towards, they are successful. I said here, when I'm learning, like I said, I have a notes tell you guys, please stop comparing. See here, whatever you love to do, as long as you go towards that, you are successful. Don't complain compare with others. For example, you make a cookie, as long as it make you happy. What you do, you love what you do what you love, you're success. Like for me, it's happened to I need a serve for artist, but mine's not bigger than yours. Everything just is. Only when we compare, think of big, small. Think about, I'm serving for art, but I cannot eat art. If you make a cookie, I can eat cookie for hungry, right? So basically, whatever you do, as long as you love, you're successful. So stop comparing with others. Whatever you go, make you happy. That's a good one. That's your purpose. That's why I make this beautiful word more successful, right? Because everybody love different things. That's why we can share, right? Anyway, let me continue reading. Most people think that you are successful if you have a lot of money. Quite often, if you have a lot of money, he said, quite often you have a lot of money if you are successful, but it isn't. I wouldn't say Mother Teresa. I think, remember, I mentioned this one, I realized, you guys realize when you're typing on the computer, there's one thing, always when you do the capitalize, and the second one follow exactly the capitalize. Anyways, that's another thing. Anyway, Miss Bob Parker said, Mother Teresa has a, super successful, but she doesn't really have a lot of money. I think there's two barriers to success. One is our conditioning, the condition that take place in our subconscious mind from the time we are infants. What we can do is, all we can do is act and talk like the people around us. That's why we learn the language we learn. If there were 10 languages spoken at home, we learn 10 languages. So that's a good idea, right? Maybe now, anyways, if you guys have a baby, maybe you should teaching them at least 2 languages. Anyway, but I think we are conditioned. We have a really strong conditioning, usually not some very good ideas. That's a barrier that's inside us. The one that's outside us is environment. We have a tendency to act like everybody around us. Because if you study statistically, I don't think these words are pronounced right, but anyways, statistics, 95% of people live their entire life and never live the way they want to live. Did you know that 95% of the population in this country, let's see, in North America, the richest continent in the history of the world, they all working productively, maybe let's say 40 of 65 years. I don't know, because now maybe not even 65, right? Some people working even older. Anyways, and they all ended up hardly have any money. There's something be wrong. Only about 5% people ended up financially comfortable and independent. And then Tom asked, "Are you trying to depress us, Bob?" He said, No. Actually, I think it's a quite exciting idea. Because you see the idea behind it. If anybody can win, anyone at all. But if we're studying these statistics, I think we will arrive at the conclusion. I better start thinking for myself rather than follow everybody. Most people, they get jobs, they look around, they see how everybody else is doing their work, and then they start doing it in the same way. They should stop and think. I wonder if any of these people know what they are doing. Is there a better way to do it? And then, of course, Tom said, but don't we try to need to fade? I mean, we don't want to stand out. We don't want to get fired. We don't want to make waves. So Miss Proctor said, exactly. Just follow into lines, take numbers, be like everybody around. That'd be great in animal kingdom. But human beings are not supposed to live that way. I think we should make a few waves. We should stand out, be different, not for the sake of being different, because we are different. We all think different thoughts. I believe we should start think and build images in our mind what we like to do, and then stand up and do it. Emerson did that. Edison did that. Of course, he gives some names. Basically, it's all successful people, right? He said it can go on and on. And he said they were different. They stood out, and they make a few waves. And then Tom continued to ask, you started with search for yourself to try to find out more about yourself, and you were somewhat successful along the way. And Miss Proctor said, well, I didn't start it like that in the beginning. I started to want to earn a lot of money. I figured if I had enough money, I was going to cure all my problems. I found that wasn't true. I earned a fair amount of money, but still have a problem, maybe more problems. But after I working for a few years, I decided that the really answer is get to know yourself a little better. I don't think you have to go off in the Himalaya and become the guru to do that. And then Thomas asked, okay, I believe there's a type, right? What did you do? What did you learn about yourself? You said you went around as many seminars as you could. And Ms. Bob Proctor said, I attended seminars. I went and listened to different speakers who taught something about the mind. I think the answer is in our mind. Sorry about that. I feel like my nose is running. Let me just clean there. Anyway, so the thing is, that's why I try to tell you guys that whatever you do, when you find something resonate with your heart, you should go deeper. See, that's what Mr. Bob Proctor started learning, like start studying himself, right? Anyway, he said, I learned that the biggest part of me you will never see. It's non-physical. And what you see here is a physical body. It's nothing but the physical manifestation of the higher side of my personality. And of course, that's true with you and Nancy. That's behind on the camera. It's true of everyone. What we have to study, I think, is how does this non-physical part of our mind work? What happens when I think? Where do thoughts come from? Because thoughts are everywhere. We put thoughts into our mind, and when we build pictures or images in our mind. What we want to understand is that non-physical side of ourselves. That's all the now. Remember, we keep thinking you need to use your imagination, so you build a picture in your mind. Anyway, he said, if I can build the image of something in my mind, I'm quite capable of building the physical replica of it in my world. So if I build image of me as a happy, relaxed person, I can live like that. If I build the image of myself as being prosperous, I can become prosperous. The Tom said, "Oh, we think rich and we will be rich, right?" Remember Mr. Bob Proctor reading this book of Qinghua and Grow Rich? He said, "Yeah, absolutely. We are already rich, just short of money." And then Tom said, "Okay, for those of us like to acquire more money, happiness, or whatever we see success is, so what are we going to do, right? So how can we reach that goal?" And Ms. Bob Proctor said, "Well, the first thing you do is sit down and decide what you want. If it's money, how much money?" And Tom said, "A lot of money." He said, "No, nobody knows how much. A lot of is how much. Right? So you need to know exactly the number. So now you guys learn. If you want the money, you need to write it down how much, not like a lot of money. Nobody knows what lot. Okay. Anyway, and then he said, you carry that card because you write it on the card, right? So you carry the card around and read it often. This is what I learned in this book, Thinking and Grow Rich. And it's what I teach in seminars. I teach people how to set goals, but you decided exactly what you want, and then you started thinking. Now you're going to have some thought come to your mind of why you cannot get it. You have the ability in your conscious mind to reject that idea, kick that out of your mind. Thinking of why you cannot do something is never going to do you any good. So you need to keep thinking until you start to thinking of thoughts of how you can do it. And then the will show you. It comes in the forms of images in your mind. Thinking of how you can, not why you can't. Something here, error. I believe is another typing error. So Tom said basically the first step is set a goal and thinking about how we can go about reaching that goal. And then Mr. Proctor said, and it's just thinking how you can. I would say even before you get into that, you should get a good book and start to study. Select a person who is already doing something that you like to do. Get to know that person. Go to the expert for the advice. Here I can give you some, but from my own experience, if you guys are really on the internet marketing, like I told you guys, I learned from the Anthony Morrison and Russell Brunson. I still trust them. Like I said, it's my fault. I didn't follow exactly what it did, but now I understand because I have, like I said, we're on the journey for different things. But like, remember Miss Bob Proctor said you need to find someone successful. Anthony Morrison and Russell Brunson, they both very, very successful. So if you want some like online business, you can learn from them. That's just my little advice, okay? Anyway, and of course, Ms. Bob Proctor said you cannot just ask your neighbors, someone who make only $10,000. They don't know how to make that much. Why you ask their opinion, right? Like if you want to get healthy, you don't go to see the sick doctor. So that's like all makes sense. Anyway, he said, you find someone that you can go to for advice and then get a good book. Log into that book, study it. And of course, he mentioned he started reading the Think and Grow Rich. Thinking about it, he can read that book from 1961. And then it took him like 9.5 years to figure out why he's so successful. He starts share with us. That's why I feel like I'm so lucky. So now I'm focused to learn from him. I read his You Were Born Rich at the same time. Like I said, I getting on the computer, getting all those YouTube videos to learn. Anyway, he said the of course, he said he continued to read this book, but I believe when this interview maybe he looks pretty young there. He said only 20 something years, because now I believe he read that book like almost 50 years. Anyways, the point is, whatever you find some good book, find a good mentor, and just stick to that until your success. Okay. And then here, Tom asked him, "Where is the value for you to reread that?" And he said, "I think thinking about if we read the book since, like 1961, right? He can recite it. Yeah, that's true. But then he mentioned the secret is when I read in a book, when you read a good book through the second time, you don't see something in it that you didn't see before. You see something in yourself that wasn't there before." To be honest with you guys, this sentence I read so many times, I still try to really get in deep understanding. See, keep saying, when you read, you don't see something in it that you didn't see before. You see something in yourself that wasn't there before. Because he's reading, he's just creating the great awareness. And then he read the book for like 2 lines. Basically, the Napoleon Hill said, "The missing link in all systems of education known to civilization today may be found in the failure of educational institutions to teach their students how to organize and using knowledge after they acquire it." And then he mentioned we should understand the real meaning of the word educate. Oh, of course, Miss Proctor mentioned something. Remember, like before we're teaching, like when we're learning, like in school, said it's just gathering information. When you gather information, you only develop your memory, and you don't really develop your mind. And then he mentioned, he's not against education because he encouraging his children to the school. Same thing. Like my daughter go to college, right? But now we learn after you learn all those knowledge, how can you use them? And then he said, of course, this Mr. Hill said, the real meaning of the word educate is this word from Latin word called educo, meaning to educe, to draw out, to develop from within. An educated man is not necessarily one who has abundance of general or specialized knowledge. An educated man is one who has so developed the faculties of his mind that he may acquire anything he wants or its equivalent without violating the rights of others. I love when they said, you see, whatever you do, you don't want to violate the others, right? So you need to be in harmony with everything. Anyway, so Mr. Bob Proctor said, an educated person is the one that knows how to go and get what they want out of life without being selfish. And then Tom mentioned about, some researcher, because those people, they know what they're looking for, so they try to know how to get about find that. And Mr. Proctor said, I think we should forever be involved in research because learning is a lifelong process. You never stop learning. Education means to draw out from within. We are drawing on an infinite source. We are getting deeper reservoir of talent and the ability within us. We can learn to do anything. We have a phenomenal power. If we use our body like we use our mind, we probably just move our little finger. So Tom said basically we don't exercise our mind enough. And then Miss Proctor said, no, because we are not taught to. So when kids in school, he mentioned, kids in school should be taught before the school year even start. Just sit down, get him blank report card, and let them visualize the mark they want to get and write on the card. And then the teacher should just say, now I want you to concentrate on how you get that mark. And I don't want you to think why you cannot. And I want you to form the attitude that you are going to get it. That kind of makes sense. If you guys have kids, no, maybe the school don't teach yet, but you can tell them, let them write it down their goal, their how they want to get, and then just tell them. Don't tell them, just tell them how they can get it. Never let them thinking about they cannot. Okay, that's good to share. Of course, that Mr. Bob Proctor said a lot of people think that's not realistic, but he said that's being very realistic. And that's follow the success principle that go back 6,000 years in recorded history. That's why how everything was accomplished. And then the Tom asked, oh, that's not engaging in fantasy thinking, like in wishful, like daydream are we talking about? And Mr. Proctor said, no, but that's where all greatness comes from. Greatness comes from fantasy. I would imagine that when Edison first saw the light bulb, he was oh, now I lose the words, right? Fantasizing. No, I don't think that's right. But anyway, you know what I mean. Basically, imagination, right? But then he kept fantasizing and he built it into a theory, and then he built it into image, and then he built it into fact. Think about this. Remember I told you guys, thinking some good pictures in your mind and they will come to true. And then he mentioned when he was a kid, is go to moon is fantasy, but not people go to moon with a car and play golf, right? And then, like Tom also mentioned about, I believe they talking about the successful principle. He said attitude, like in the business, like talking about attitude. And then Mr. Proctor said, attitude, it takes in the way you think, and the way you feel, and the way you act. Of course, he mentioned he has a difficult time to explain because basically on the seminar he has a board, but that's not like remember I told you guys, whatever you want to learn, you just pay attention, learn the important things. But then here it kind of attracted me too. Even though you see he said, of course, in 3 minutes because shorter interview like half an hour can't do the 3 hours thing, right? But then he said, like I haven't basically like cannot in the talk in 3 minutes, right? But then he said I can do it. I haven't learned how yet. See, this shows his attitude. Even though you cannot do it, but you know you can. You just you haven't learned it yet. So from now on, remember what I said, whatever you set your goal, don't think you cannot. You just haven't learned enough yet. You will get that. That's like a winning attitude. I know. Here, see here, you mentioned you have to have a winning attitude. Anyway, so that of course, the continue interview, and Tom said, in human relations, we're talking about the toughness things with managing people, is to deal with their attitude. That's almost impossible to change another person. But then Mr. Proctor said, Yeah, that's right. That's one thing where management fall down. And Tom said, we cannot change people's attitude. So Mr. Proctor said, well, nobody can change another person's attitude. The only attitude we can change is our own. But you see, if management has an idea, it's their attitude, and we cannot do anything about it, then we are not going to do anything about it. But if the management arrives at the conclusion, it is attitude, and let's teach the people something about attitude. Let's teaching them something about themselves. Let's make them realize that we are worth of something. We are valuable. We are the greatest resource we got. See, I believe this paragraph, all the company leaders should study this. That's how can you treat your employee can make your company more successful. Of course, he gives some, the numbers like the company spent about 65 of their dollars that comes in, go back to the employees and wages and benefits. But then management know less about employee than anything else. So now you should know we're dealing with human beings. You should know the human instead of all those, the of course it's all important for like a benefit or those, the wages. But then you need to know how can inspire all your employees so they can do their best for you, right? So I believe they continue talking about this winning attitude. And then Tom asked, but can you define that for me? What is winning attitude? And then Mr. Proctor said, if we could understand, let's digress for a second. The whole universe operates by laws. And there's a law of opposite. It's called the law of polarity. Everything at its opposite. There's right and left, there's front and back, up and down, right? So here, you can think negative or you can think positive, but you cannot think both at the same time. You are only going to think one way at a time. So we have to train our mind to think or look for the positive or the good in things. There's a good in everything. There's no such thing as no good. And then Tom said something like, if a car broke down on the way over the station, and then Miss Proctor still said, there's something good about it. Maybe you need to have to look up, to find it. Because there's something good in everything. There has to be positive and negative for anything to exist. There's a law of gender that decreases that. Science understands that. It's taught in science. Well, when we understand that there's this law of opposites, there's negative thoughts or positive thought. The thought energy flows into our mind. We decide what we are going to think. People is out of work. They can decide to think I cannot find a job, but they can decide to think I can. If they're thinking I'm going to find one, then they will start attracting the train of thought to them, figuring out how to find it. You really have to understand how your conscious and your subconscious mind work in relations to your body or your physical world to understand attitude. Attitude should be taught as a subject in school because it's a personal attitude that's going to determine the mark they get. So Tom can continue asking about the attitude. He said, "Oh, maybe it's related to the attitude, also related to the self-image." So Miss Proctor continued, "Well, that would like we were talking about the success principle, and I was saying you're going to get the winning attitude. You got to set a goal, then you have to work on self-image." And then he give example, the Dr. Maxwell Maltz, talking about the discovered self-image concept. Is in 1960s. He's a plastic surgeon, and he realized when he operating on people, sometimes maybe remove cigar or do some kind of nose job, and some people they change their personality change. So he started do the deeper study, and he said it must be, there are two images. So external image, and we also have an inner self called self-image. And he started to, he said the doctor continued study and wrote the book Psyche Cybernetics. I didn't read this book yet, but anyways, if you guys interested, you can continue. But remember, I told you guys, see, they all opportunity there. If you really pay attention, you go deeper, you can always find something. See, now the doctor find this two images about us, right? And then he said, too many people don't know much about themselves, and they don't have a very good image of themselves. Because you can see, often some people, they don't look at you, they look up or they look down, because that's because they have very low self-image. And then the Tom asked, a part of that maybe because through school we told, about we don't do well, we fail, or we only make some got 60% or whatever. And Miss Bob Proctor said that would be part of it. And also he mentioned, I think they do the IQ test. He said that's disservice. Because basically whatever they do, some people may be stuck in their head and then they think they're not good, but you can change your self-image to get a high grade, right? Because as a human being, we can do anything. We should encourage a child, give them a pat on the back rather than a kick. See, now if you have kids, sometimes they thinking about something for you're thinking crazy. No, because they exercise their imagination, right? You should encourage them. Anyway, let's just continue here. He said, Tom asked, "What can we do?" This, a lot of audience here. Maybe they want to know how we can just getting better a self-image, or maybe let me see what he said here. He said, "Okay, what can we do, members of our viewing audience? Right now, that most of us walking around with some degree of self-image. Is that fair to say?" And Ms. Bob Proctor said, "We all have self-image." And then Tom asked, "Would you say most of us have a negative self-image to some degree?" And then Mr. Bob Proctor said, "Let's see, we can all improve our self-image. I don't care how good your image is, you can improve it." And then Tom asked, "How can we improve it?" Something like a specific, how can we go about making our self-image more positive? And then Ms. Popper again said, you are going to give you a whole day seminar, right? And then he said, "If I could give you just a simple tape on it, if a person would sit down and let their body relax, totally relax, and then start to visualizing in their mind, see themselves the way they want to see themselves." And then Tom asked again, which may take a good deal of thought, things we are not sure at first. And then Miss Proctor said, just relax. And Tom said, no, I mean, like, we want to see ourselves. Maybe we don't know how we look ourselves. Right? So Miss Proctor said, related to something specific, like maybe someone you admire, or somewhere we like to see ourselves down the road. And then he said, you like to live your life, see yourself living that way. Now, understanding that's the picture in your mind. When you pick up a book, the book is nothing but a picture that the author has painted in words. And he mentioned that Van Gogh, right, the great artist, when they asked, him why he did a beautiful painting, he said, I dreamed my painting and then I paint my dream. See, now we know you have to have a beautiful picture inside and then can make it true, right? And then he continued, if we would relax and build the image in our mind of how we'd like to see ourselves, how we'd like to see ourselves acting in life, relating to other people, our social life, see ourselves in the position we hold, or how we make our sales presentation if we happen to be in sales, and then take that picture and describe it, write it up in present tense. Here, present tense. Like whatever you image in your mind, you bring them to the present tense. And then you said, I'm so happy now that I can see myself and then write it down. So here is very important because whatever you think, like maybe kind of your future life, but you need to bring them, you're living now. That's like a very important. Of course, he mentioned a lot of people maybe laugh at you because not everybody to understand this, right? But like I said, if you really want to have a beautiful life, you should just take all those doubts, don't believe thing away. You should just follow whatever he teach you, right? Anyway, he said, he said, a lot of people said it doesn't make sense, right? But he said, we cannot tell you why it doesn't, but I could spend hours telling you why it does. And I would explain to it in such detail that everyone would understand it. But just write the description of how you like to see yourself. Start to read it and read it and read it and read it every day. Carrying this around, keeping reading it. The one point that all the great teachers, all down through the history, they all agree on, we become what we think about. Remember this. Remember why we keep repeating, because when you keep repeating, you basically you press that to your subconscious mind, and those can creating the different vibrations. So when your vibration change, basically at the same time you change your paradigm. That's why you can attract a new thing to you. And then he mentioned William James said, believe and your belief will create the fact. So I hope this is now I understand why it takes me whole day to typing, right? Even I'm reading and then take almost 43 minutes and not finish the whole thing yet. But like told you guys, what we know now, Mr. Bob Proctor said, do you know who you are? So stop looking for outside. It's your result. So you should change. That's why you should find yourself. You have power. So when whatever comes in, training your mind, focus on the good. Remember he said everything with positive, negative, but you training your mind looking for positive. Everything has good inside, looking for the good. Anyway, I hope you like this message. If you like, of course it's long, but you can share with others. And I'm like I said, I promise myself I'm going to learn with Miss Bob Proctor, and I share my point with you. Let's all working together. Things we know now, we are spiritual beings living in the physical body, and we have intellect. So we use our high faculty to live the life we want. Don't just lock in your body. You can do a lot. Talk to you guys soon.